Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Hey everybody, it is Craig Evans from the Norris Group here. We are super excited today to have a great show for you. We've actually got one of our internal officers with us. Craig Hill is our loan officer and underwriter for the Norris Group. Craig was born and raised in Lakewood, California. While there, Craig attended Lakewood High, Long Beach City College, and received his Bachelor of Science degree from California State University, Long Beach. While attending CSULB, he followed his love of baseball by making his profession buying and selling baseball cards. In 1984, Craig took his first job in the lending industry, working for Vanguard Mortgage as a loan officer and loan manager. While employed there, he met and began funding REO purchases with none other than Bruce Norris. When Bruce officially started the Norris Group in 1994, Craig came aboard as both a loan officer and an investment manager and never looked back. Since that time, they have arranged hundreds of millions worth of investor loans together between Bruce and Craig. Recently, Craig served several years as vice chairman for Exbound, a nonprofit organization designed to help developmentally disabled adults increase their social interaction. Craig enjoys sports and spending time with his wife, Laura, and daughter, Caitlin. Craig, it is so good to have you on today, my friend. I know you're busy, and we got a lot of things going with a lot of different items.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you carving out some time. I guess you didn't really have an option since I said, hey, we're doing a piece on you today, right?
Yeah, I guess not. This one was not optional.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's just jump right into stuff, okay? Because I want to get into what we do and what we're about and how things started, right? So, I've heard Bruce talk a lot about in the early days of his investing career and that he was working to find deals and that you were a big part of that early on as his money source, right?
Yes. So
can do me a favor, tell our audience how you and Bruce really first started connecting and working together.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting story for a couple of reasons. This is probably going back 30 plus, maybe almost 35 years ago when I first met Bruce. He had somebody that was actually kind of calling on hard money loan companies at the time, and he was trying to see somebody that would be a fit. Well, this person that he had come to see me, we got along real good. So Bruce set up a meeting. So Bruce and I met for the first time. Now, what's interesting about the hard money loan business at this time, and a lot of people don't realize this because now hard money is almost synonymous with investor loans.
Yep.
Well, when Bruce and I first met, that was not the case. Like, basically, hard money was based on like one fact, like it's worth what you pay for it. Like, so right. Here I am with Bruce, just kind of a quick scenario of our first transactions together. He brought me two deals in Moreno Valley. He used to work a lot in Moreno Valley, California. So now the numbers aren't going to make sense, but you'll see the point. So they were probably worth between 90 and 100 grand when fixed up.
Okay.
Well, Bruce brought them to me and he had paid 42 and 39. Okay. So it was my job to convince the ownership at the time that these were good deals. Now, bear in mind, hard money at this time, that same house in Moreno Valley, if you had somebody living there that had never made a payment and was desperate to get money, we probably would have lent $60,000 to that client. Okay.
Okay.
That's just the nature of the business. That's who we lent to. Now introduce Bruce, who totally throws everything upside down. Well, here's a guy with a lot of money, good credit, experience, but he's buying these houses for, let's just say, 40 grand. Okay. So all of a sudden that upsets the apple cart, right?
Right.
Because I know Bruce is thinking, shouldn't I get 60? And, the ownership at the time was thinking, well, geez, we should give him like 25.
Yeah.
So basically what I had to do was I just basically convinced the ownership that this was transformational. Like, this is going to be a whole new way to do this, at least for me personally.
Sure.
Like, I don't see anything that makes more sense than this. So I was able to get Bruce what he paid for him.
Okay.
So it was somewhat of a compromise. So Bruce was happy with that. And basically what he did to like kind of reward the effort, I think he paid probably 6 months in advance of interest. So
okay,
right away, how many clients do we have that is doing that? Right.
Right. Exactly.
We're lucky if we get one payment in 6 months, the way the business was.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of a sudden the light went on in my head, and I totally disregarded the hard money model that I knew.
Okay.
And I started working with Bruce, and what that meant was this was, if people remember that are, that go way back, the HUD auctions, right? Those were when Bruce and I first started together. Well, everybody else would be grinding for the month trying to get a few deals. I'd just wait for Bruce to go to the HUD auction and send me over like a sheet of paper with the 5 deals he just bought, right? So for me, this made a lot more sense.
Yep.
So I just kind of started thinking, well, Bruce can't be the only one out there. So if anybody else, once again, long time and even not so long, because Mike is still a prominent figure now. My second client was Mike Cantu.
Okay.
So I was able to get Mike on board, and how we met Mike was Robin L. Haddop at the time. She worked in our kind of doing a lot of things, but she was involved with the foreclosures too.
Yeah.
So Mike was trying to buy one of our foreclosures, and Robin said, you should talk to Craig. So I talked to Mike. I told him what we were doing. And all of a sudden now I had 2 guys sending me all these deals.
Right.
Whereas I'd get more deals from those 2 guys in a month than everybody else did their whole client base for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's sort of revolutionized. And now, like I say, it's synonymous with hard money. It's investors. A lot of people don't do what is situational hard money anymore. So it was really kind of revolutionary. And I mentioned Robin's name because Robin, probably about a year and a half into this, maybe less, Bruce decided it'd be a good idea to open up a hard money company of his own. And so basically, that's what he did. When he opened up the Norris Group, he asked me if I'd come and do the loan business for him.
Well, so let me ask you that. Why is that an aspect that, you're obviously with Vanguard, you're with a company that's got brand recognition and is already rolling. I think maybe you've answered it, but I want to hear if there's other ideas there that, why did you feel comfortable to say, hey, I'm going to lead what's known and go with Bruce into, in essence, let's face it, at that time, kind of a fledgling startup, right? I mean, you were doing loans and stuff. It was a brand new.
Yeah. And anybody that knows me that's been around me these last 30 years, they know that is totally out of my character.
Sure.
Totally out of my character. So Bruce and I met numerous times, and I just, the more I talked with Bruce, I just felt like there was a lot of potential for what I could do that maybe I wasn't doing at the company I was with. Okay. So it just really felt like I just really followed my gut, and it seemed like the right decision. And looking back on it now, obviously I have, no regrets at all. We were the perfect fit for 30 years.
Yeah.
But it was also a good opportunity for me. Where I just did like one side of the business. I just generated the deals. Well, as I was near the end, getting ready to leave with Bruce, I wanted to do everything because I'd talk to people about what I did, and then, well, Craig, can I get in on this? Sure. So I was doing a lot of volume, so I was able to tell them that, hey, I'd like to start funding some of my own deals. So going with Bruce, it was kind of interesting the way it worked out, because our initial plan is, you know how those initial plans go. Like I was going to be like the one that like had the borrowers, if you will, and then he would be more on the money side initially with, bringing people in. And ironically, the way it kind of turned out, a lot of the money people at the company I was with wanted to follow me because they knew the quality of paper that I did. Even going, back before there was a Bruce, I was, they used to joke, I was charging hard money rates and writing B paper. Like that's kind of how I've always been that way. I've always wanted to write good paper. So that was natural for maybe them to want to come to my side, but it turned out to be, with all of Bruce's his love for speaking, it just turned into this natural chemistry where he was actually good at generating the interest in the borrowers, and then I turned out that I was really, really good with the money side of it.
Okay.
So yeah, it just kind of morphed from there, and then, like I say, when Bruce started the Norris Group, Robin came with me and set up all the loan side of it. Anybody that knows me knows Robin, and then Rhonda, who's still with the company, and Robin still is there as needed, kind of a part-time help.
Yep.
Rhonda was actually the first person that Bruce hired because she set up the whole office for her, and she had worked at a real estate company. So that's kind of how it all began. And we just, the chemistry and the camaraderie that the four of us shared for all those years was, just, it was and has been a great experience. And then, the transition seems to be seamless with how everybody feels now. So that's kind of the background, but it really is interesting how hard money changed from being, lending situationally to lending to investors.
Sure. Well, listen, since I've taken over the Norris Group, we're 13 months into kind of the change of me owning now and stuff. And, the interesting thing is we still got a lot of new investors and other real estate professionals wanting to jump into the investment side,
right,
of hard money, trust deed lending, things like that. So, so for those that are new, what I want to do is I want to jump into the technical side of the loan business a little bit. So first of all, let's kind of back in, and because there's a lot of terms that we throw around, and in the business we throw around between, hard money lending, private lending, trust deed position, first position, trust deed position, all of these things. Bruce, or Craig, I said Bruce. Craig, if you will, kind of take us through a little bit and tell us, what's hard money, what's private money, what's, trust deed. No, that's people through that process.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, because I get that's a question I get a lot. Like it's a term to so many people. So the first thing I say is I start out by saying the paperwork of it is really no different than Bank of America. So if you understand, like when you get a first on your house with Bank of America, you understand the paperwork with hard money. It's really not any different. So that's probably the easiest way, to start the conversation. The second aspect of it is a lot of people think, hard money is almost a blank check for whatever they need. Like, whether it's personal loan, or we get a lot of just, there's such a wide variety of people. They just hear the term hard money and they think, well, geez, I can get that.
Right.
So that's kind of a misconception. When from a borrower's point of view, hard money, it's going to be easier in some ways because the qualifying isn't there. We got at the Norris Group, we've kind of developed our own process based on just a couple different factors. Like we are looking at credit, and primarily we're looking at liquid cash because, somebody really needs to have the ability to do this business before they should do it, and this doesn't limit, we get a lot of new calls, a lot of new people that want to do this. So it's not discouraging to them. It's just that when we get somebody, we're probably different in the sense that we really want to make sure that they're successful. So, if they might not have the liquid cash that we're looking for, I always ask them, like, well, do you have somebody that is unique to you that you would be willing to work with you? Mainly like a family member, this or that, somebody that's unique to them. So we're pretty flexible in that way. So when it comes to hard money, there is a lot more flexibility. And then a lot of people think hard money will lend you more on a deal. Well, if you want to get 90% or something on a typical deal, now I'll have to backtrack a little bit, but the bank will lend you that on a property that's fixed up. So we're dealing with the property that needs work, so the numbers work a little differently. But it's really a combination of like what the property will be worth when it's fixed up, what you're buying it for, and then how much the repairs are. So you're kind of looking at, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, so kind of straighten me out if you feel that I'm off.
Well, yeah, I want to, because I was actually about to go there as far as what that from an asset lending, what we're looking at in those components and how we're judging the money that's given out and how, from an underwriting perspective, what you're viewing. But I want to clear up a few things because, we do things a lot different than other people, right? So you got hard money lending that comes out of funds. You've got hard money lending that comes from certain individuals, from groups, things like that. I think I want to clear up and make sure that our audience understands currently and in the past how most of our trust deeds or how most of our hard money loans have transpired is kind of in a first position trust deed perspective. So can you walk them through what that, because I still get that asked probably at least once or twice a month, saying, hey, well, what's the real difference in a first position trust deed? Because that's kind of unique to California and a few other states, but there are so many other states that don't have trust deeds. It's a mortgage, right? But it's who owns that. So I wanted to get you to kind of go through and explain, like, hey, what is that trust deed? What's that first position in that spot, and what does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, a mortgage in first position or a trust deed, they are going to be similar. So where we're unique on that part of it is a lot of companies have gone to like funds and things like that. So we're still doing business. I guess you can almost call it the old-fashioned way, at least part of our business. We are developing a fund that will also help increase it from what the buyers are looking for. But most of the loans we do, it's just one investor in one trust deed. So going back to the Bank of America example, John Smith has a first trust deed on the property. So he's secured that way. There's nothing before him. So that's how we do it. So it's just one investor, one trust deed. And the people that invest with us, the money side of it, they really like that because it's not as easy to find that. Going back, 20 years, that's all it was. Well, now we're one of the unique options with that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of value to that when you're doing kind of a private one-to-one relationship of lending. because you don't have a conglomerate in there. Going in, okay, here's the paper you're writing. This is the relationship that's coming out of that. And there's no other people stepping in and making decisions that make that, start to get awkward and there's relationships that start to be built out of that. I think that's a lot of the key that people sometimes miss, that where a value to a one-to-one trustee is. It's a different way. It's an old school way of kind of doing things, but it's still a very valuable way between the borrower and the lender of providing, a good appetite or a good option to be able to get loans when they need them, and also investments for investors, right? And I think that's a lot of times what people miss out of that. So,
I mean, they're able to basically, when we sell a trustee, to an investor, they're able to look at the appraisal. They see what the house is. They see where it is. That they know that the worst case scenario on that is they could ultimately end up with that as a rental.
Yeah.
So that they have a very clear path of what all the options are. Fortunately for us, we have had very, very few that are in that situation. So most of the time they're just going to get payments, and that's going to, then they're going to get paid off. But you always got to make them aware of what that worst case scenario would be. And once again, it's a very rational, easy to understand scenario, because it's one house, one trustee. They know what the property is, so it's easy in that respect.
Well, let's kind of go back to the B of A analogy. So many people call what we do, from an like asset-based lending.
Right.
In that process, let's kind of go back again and just discuss briefly the differences between how we approve a borrower, approve them credit worthy to do this deal, even though, yes, we're asset-based lending, compared to a conventional qualifying situation through a B of A, something like that.
Yeah. Ourselves, maybe even comparison, which would be more appropriate to other like hard money companies. Okay. Yep. A lot of them really are almost strictly asset-based.
Yep.
Like they're not looking at the borrower probably in the common sense way that we do. Like we're trying to look at it. We don't have a form and a set of numbers that they have to get these numbers to qualify. As I'd mentioned earlier, we're really looking, we want to make sure that this person is going to have a successful outcome.
Yep.
And there is a way to do that. You can look at the property, and once again, with some of these newer clients that want to get into buying aspect of it, in the property, the whole deal is more than just numbers. And sometimes new people don't understand that. Like, well, I could show you a deal with certain numbers that look better, but it's not as good a deal as the one next to it. So
let's try that when we're talking about a borrower comes into us, right? Let's say we get an application that comes in, and
right,
you or Joey, as our team is looking at these applications when they're coming in, you're head of underwriting. So what are some of the first things that you look for in an application before you even have the conversation with a borrower?
Yeah, no, the first thing I do, and this almost, it's so elementary, but this has changed over the last 10 plus years probably. The first thing I do is look at the Google overhead.
Okay.
Because that will tell you a lot. Like, some of these are easy, but there are other things. But for instance, is it next to a commercial building?
Sure.
Because there's so many things that would make this house less sellable than another one. Okay. Or you're looking at the overhead and there's a street of houses, and then the neighborhood right behind it and almost everything around it is a brand new tract. Okay. Yep. Well, when you're just pulling numbers, you're pulling numbers from this tract. You're not pulling numbers from just that street. So there's a lot of things that can be ascertained by just looking at the overhead. You can see, is it like not too far from a freeway? Are there railroad tracks nearby? Is there a huge power, sometimes there's a huge power pole in the backyard. I mean,
Right.
If the husband and wife go to look at that house, the wife's going to say, I don't want that. And especially right now, we're not in a market. Now, unfortunately, some people will get into this business when you could almost sell a box,
Yep.
because it's so frantic. But
Right.
you kind of have to deal with it like in a market where you have to feel like there could be competition.
Yep.
And what are all the reasons that would make the couple decide this house is better than yours? It doesn't mean that but that all affects price and things, because too often with new people, they want to just, when it's a newer deal, they want to just, they so want to say yes to they're trying to find a reason. They want to say yes.
Right.
And see, once again, anybody that knows me, I want to say no.
Well,
I just want to make sure that I give them, they make sure they answer all the questions. And as long as they're all, then it's a good deal. But you want to make sure you ask all those questions.
Well, Craig, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking about, one of the things that I looked at when I was buying the Norris Group, and Bruce and I were coming down to, okay, it's coming down to the end of 2023, 2024 would be the date we do this. Am I really going to buy this company, right? One of the things that I really had to look at was, all right, what was the history of the paper that the Norris Group has written, right? What's the quality of paper? How many defaults had we had? All of that kind of stuff, right? Because that tells us, how are we underwriting from a borrower perspective? How are we underwriting and protecting our investors? Those were things that I had to look at, right? And obviously, we at the Norris Group, we've got a great track record in what we do there. And I think what I want to make sure our audience catches out of this isn't just about like what you're looking at or what they need to think about, but if they can really understand how you're viewing a property, and that's not setting you on a pedestal or things like that, but the reality is you've got, almost 3 decades of history of looking at at deals and understanding, hey, where's a good deal at, right? And so, like you say, so many people want to jump in and this is their first deal or their third deal, and they think this is great, and they're missing the important things that you, as that objective third party, looked at it on Google overhead and just said, you missed it. There's a grow house 2 houses down.
Yeah. No, yeah. It is important that they start to look for and like I always tell them, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to try to give you as many questions as I can so you can find out the answers. Sometimes it might be something on title that doesn't make sense.
I think that's important as people, especially our borrowers, right? There's a huge protection in our investors understanding that that's the approach you take to protect their money, right? So when you're talking to investors on a one-to-one relationship of a trust deed, they know they can trust you in the paper you're bringing to them, right? It should make that decision a lot easier. But I think the thing that's interesting out of this, Craig, is I really want our audience to hear, if there are borrowers and if they're considering being borrowing from, or being someone that's borrowing from us, boy, so often I know in my past, the underwriter is like, oh, that's the one you want to fight with. It's like, come on, boy, I think if more people would listen to some of the wisdom that you bring to that table, there's a lot of things they can glean and start to understand how do they better vet a product before they even start making offers and trying to take them down. There's a lot of things that I'm seeing out of that I wanted our audience to hear, versus just these are questions you're asking, right?
Oh yeah, no, and I have a whole laundry list of people that I've talked to about deals, and they haven't done them and they've thanked me, and in all honesty, to be fair, there's always, used to be at least one guy at a seminar that would search me out, said he bought the deal anyway, and he turned out great, which is good. I'm glad,
Yep.
But overall, you just try to make sure that you make everybody aware of all the different aspects that could come up, because often, a lot of times, Craig, it's interesting too. The new people, you just go through the numbers with them. Like they tell me they have this deal, and I break it down kind of like, I'll say, okay, what are you going to be able to sell the house for? What are you buying it for? What are your repairs? Okay. And I always try to emphasize to them, you can't miss on the repairs and you can't miss on the ARV. Yep. Because as you know, they're always high on the ARV and low on the repairs. So it's human nature.
That's right.
And if I just look at a very, second grade math formula, and I add up the purchase price and the repairs, and it's well over 80% of the ARV, there's not enough room in there for them.
Yeah.
And so many of them are so grateful for that little bit of information, just like, because they're thinking, if, it's 500 and they're getting 480, they're going to make out. You know what I mean? It's just sometimes the simplest things are a useful tool for them. So now when they're analyzing the next deal, they're going to kind of at least break it down and start backing it out that way. Because, by the time you put in cost and, everything else, that 20% turns into 10 like nobody's business.
Sure.
So, sometimes it's just a matter of a simple formula, to help them like start to see the deals. And what I'll do with new people, and I can't do this like indefinitely, but if somebody is really close and looking at a deal, I say, hey, just send it over. Give me just some basic details. And I said, we'll go over it.
Sure.
We'll take a look at it to see, if you're in the ballpark or something, because, you like to get them off to a start. And I always tell them, you can never tell somebody, okay, you're going to make money here, but what we try to do is say, this really looks like you might lose money, which is even a better service.
Yep. That's right.
So if I used to have a guy which I haven't worn a tie in I don't know how many years, but when I did, I told him, you don't have to tell me I look good, but if like this is really stupid, just tell me right now. I'd rather know that side of it.
Hey, everybody, that's going to do it for part 1 with Craig Hill. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender License 1577, and NMLS License 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the Hard Money tab.